There is a specific, suffocating kind of silence that fills the car on the drive home after you have been passed over. It is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of a scream that you have swallowed, a jagged lump of resentment sitting heavy in your throat. You play the movie of the last few months in your head, scene by agonizing scene. You were the one who stayed late when the office was empty. The hum of the fluorescent lights, your only company. You were the one who fixed the errors the others made, quietly, without asking for credit, because you believed that the work speaks for itself. You were the one who listened, who empathized, who swallowed your own pride to keep the peace, who always said yes because you thought yes was the currency of advancement. And yet the promotion, or the girl, or the victory went to the one who did none of those things. It went to the person who cut corners, who spoke over you in meetings, who wore their arrogance like a tailored suit. And the most terrifying part, the part that keeps you staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., is that they didn't just win. They were rewarded for the very traits you were told were sins. We are raised on a diet of beautiful, dangerous lies. From the moment we are old enough to understand language, we are fed a fairy tale about the mechanics of the universe. We are told that if we are kind, the world will be kind in return. We are told that justice is a natural law, like gravity, and that if we keep our heads down and follow the rules, the meritocracy will eventually find us and place a gold star on our foreheads. But this belief system is not just wrong, it is a strategic catastrophe. It is the reason you feel paralyzed. It is the reason you are losing. You are playing a game of chess with the rules of checkers, moving your pieces with honor and transparency, while your opponent is simply lighting the board on fire. To understand why nice people lose, we have to strip away the moralizing veneer of modern society and look at the engine room of human power. We have to sit at the feet of the man who saw the world not as it ought to be, but exactly as it is, Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli is often painted as a villain, a caricature of evil, twisting his mustache in the shadows. But this is a defense mechanism used by people who are terrified of his truth. Machiavelli wasn't a villain. He was a doctor describing a disease. He looked at the chaos of 16th century Italy, a world of poison, betrayal, and war, and he realized that the good men, the men of pure moral virtue, were the first to die. They were slaughtered because they insisted on bringing a Bible to a knife fight. His revelation, the one that forms the spine of this dark philosophy, is that there is a fundamental difference between private morality and strategic effectiveness. In the private sphere, kindness, generosity, and softness are virtues. But in the arena of competition, whether that is corporate warfare, romantic negotiation, or the pursuit of power, those same traits are not virtues. They are vulnerabilities. They are open gates inviting the barbarians inside. Consider the nice guy or the nice girl archetype. This persona is usually not born out of genuine, overflowing sainthood. It is born out of fear. It is a survival strategy developed in childhood to avoid conflict. We learn that if we are compliant, if we make ourselves smaller, if we accommodate everyone else's needs before our own, we will be safe. We weaponize our own harmlessness. But there is a fatal flaw in this logic. Harmlessness is not virtue. A rabbit is not virtuous because it doesn't eat the wolf. It is simply harmless. True virtue requires the capacity for danger. To be truly good, you must have the ability to be a monster, and then the discipline to keep that monster on a leash. If you are only nice because you are incapable of being dangerous, you're not moral. You are just prey. And the world is filled with predators who can smell that scent of weakness from a mile away. This brings us to the concept of ruthlessness. The word itself feels jagged, violent. We recoil from it. But let us wash the word clean for a moment. Ruthlessness does not mean cruelty. It does not mean taking joy in the suffering of others. That is sadism, and sadism is a weakness of its own because it is emotional and irrational. Ruthlessness, in the Machiavellian sense, is something far colder and far more useful. It is the surgical removal of unnecessary emotion from the decision-making process. It is the ability to look at a situation, a failing business relationship, a toxic friendship, a habit that is destroying you, and make the necessary cut without the hesitation of sentimentality. The nice person stands with the scalpel hovering over the wound, paralyzed by the fear of causing pain, and in doing so, they let the infection kill the patient. The ruthless person makes the cut. They do not enjoy the blood, but they accept it as the cost of survival. When you operate from a place of chronic niceness, you're essentially signing a covert contract with the universe that no one else agreed to. You think, I'm sacrificing my needs for you, therefore you owe me loyalty and respect. But the other person didn't sign that contract. They just see someone who has no boundaries. And human nature, dark as it may be, acts like a gas. It expands to fill the space available. If you do not build walls of iron around your time, your energy, and your dignity, people will not stop at the edge of your comfort zone. They will march right through it, set up camp, and then complain that you aren't making them comfortable enough. This is why the nice person ends up resentful. They give and give, depleting their own resources, waiting for the reciprocity that never comes, until they eventually snap in a moment of hysterical, impotent rage. And then, tragically, they are labeled the crazy one. Machiavelli used the metaphor of the lion and the fox. The lion is pure, raw force. It can frighten the wolves. The fox is pure cunning. It can recognize the traps. You must be both. The nice person is neither. They lack the teeth of the lion to command respect, and they lack the skepticism of the fox to see the trap. They walk into the meeting assuming transparency. They walk into the negotiation assuming a win-win outcome. They project their own ethical code onto people who are operating on a completely different operating system. You must understand that there are people out there, people you work with, people you may even love, who view life as a zero-sum game. For them to win, you must lose. When you approach these people with niceness, you are not disarming them. You are handing them your ammunition. To escape this trap, you must embrace the principle of strategic aloofness. The nice person is desperate for connection, desperate to be liked. This desperation is a stench. It signals low status. In every social hierarchy, from the schoolyard to the boardroom, the person who needs the validation the least holds the most power. When you are overly agreeable, when you smile too much, when you apologize for taking up space, you are signaling that you are lower in the dominance hierarchy. You are signaling that your resources, your time, your attention, your favor are cheap. And basic economics tells us that what is cheap is not valued. The ruthless individual understands the power of scarcity. They are polite, yes, they are civilized, but they are not accessible. There is a velvet rope across the entrance to their psyche. They do not give their validation away for free. They make people work for it. And paradoxically, by being less nice, by being more guarded, more discerning, and more willing to walk away, they become more respected. This shift requires a death. You have to kill the part of you that is addicted to the approval of others. It is a painful excision. You have to accept that some people will dislike you, and not only that, but that their dislike is actually a sign that you are doing something right. If you are pleasing everyone, you are lying to someone, usually yourself. Machiavelli advised that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. Now, in a modern context, we don't mean feared like a tyrant. We mean respected. We mean that people understand there are consequences for crossing you. The nice person has no consequences. You can flake on them, steal their credit, or disrespect their time, and they will just smile and say, "It's okay." Why would anyone respect a law that has no punishment? You must establish a perimeter of self-respect where the consequences for violation are swift and absolute. Think of the most effective leaders or mentors you have ever known. Were they nice? Probably not. They were likely fair. They were likely consistent. They were likely helpful. But they possessed an edge, a weightiness that demanded you bring your best self to the table. You didn't want to disappoint them, not because you thought they would yell, but because you valued their respect. That weightiness comes from the integration of their shadow. They knew who they were, and they knew what they were capable of. They weren't hiding behind a mask of politeness. They were present fully and terrifyingly present. This is the goal. Not to become a villain, but to become a formidable force. To stop asking for permission to exist and to start designing the architecture of your life with the cold precision of an architect who knows that gravity does not care about good intentions. But how do we apply this in the granular, messy reality of daily life? It starts with the no. The nice person's no is weak, padded with excuses and apologies. "I'm so sorry, I really would love to, but I just have this thing." They are begging for forgiveness for having boundaries. The ruthless no is a complete sentence. It is delivered without heat and without explanation. "I can't do that. That doesn't work for me." No. When you strip the apology from your refusal, you send a shockwave through the dynamic. You're establishing that your time is your own property, not a communal resource to be plundered. The first time you do this, your heart will race. You will feel a phantom guilt, the echo of that childhood conditioning. But then you will notice something. The sky doesn't fall. The other person adjusts, and usually a glimmer of new respect appears in their eyes. You have drawn a line in the sand, and for the first time, it is made of concrete, not chalk. That silence, that heavy, thick pause after you finally refuse to be moved, is not an awkward gap in the conversation. It is the sound of the power dynamic shifting on its axis. It is the sound of you regaining your center of gravity. You see, the nice person is perpetually off balance, leaning forward, extending themselves into the space of others, desperate to bridge the gap. The ruthless person sits back, they are anchored. And in a world of drift, the anchored object becomes the reference point around which everything else must orbit. This applies nowhere more brutally than in the realm of negotiation, whether you're negotiating a salary, a business contract, or the terms of a romantic relationship. The nice person enters the room already defeated because they are negotiating against themselves. Before a single number is thrown out, they have already lowered their asking price in their own head, terrified of appearing greedy or difficult. They want the deal more than they want their own dignity. But the Machiavellian operator knows the iron law of leverage. The person who cares the least wins. This is not about apathy. It is about emotional autonomy. If you walk into a room needing the deal, if your rent, your self-esteem, or your identity depends on them saying yes, you have already handed them the knife and bared your throat. You must cultivate the genuine ability to walk away. You must visualize the scenario where the deal fails, where the relationship ends, where the opportunity vanishes, and you must find peace with that outcome before you sit down at the table. When you are truly unafraid of loss, you become terrifyingly effective. You can stare into the eyes of the other party and hold the silence longer than they can. You can reject a lowball offer without anger, simply stating that it doesn't align with your value, and then begin to pack your bag. That motion, the physical act of preparing to leave, triggers a primal panic in the opponent. Suddenly, they are the ones chasing. Suddenly, the nice guy isn't so easy to push around anymore. We must also dismantle the silent martyrdom of the nice person in the workplace. You believe the lie that the work speaks for itself. You believe that if you just grind harder, if you stay later, if you produce more, the sheer radiance of your output will force the world to acknowledge you. But the work does not have a mouth. The work sits in a folder on a server, silent and invisible until someone points a light at it. While you are toiling in the shadows, waiting for a savior to discover your brilliance, the Machiavellian is out in the light, curating the narrative. They are ensuring the right people know who solved the problem. They are managing perceptions. This feels dirty to the nice person. It feels like bragging. But you must reframe this. It is not bragging, it is reporting. It is stewardship of your own career. If you do not advocate for your own value, you are effectively embezzling from yourself. You are allowing the organization to profit from your labor without paying the market rate for your recognition. You must become your own propagandist, quietly, subtly, but relentlessly ensuring that your contribution is recorded in the ledger of power. And what happens when the conflict finally comes? Because it will come. The nice person's strategy for conflict is avoidance, followed by appeasement, followed by resentment. They let small slights slide, accumulating a debt of anger that eventually bankrupts their emotional stability. The ruthless individual handles conflict with the precision of a controlled demolition. They do not explode. They do not lose control of their faculties. When someone disrespects them, they do not laugh it off to ease the tension. They stop. They look. They ask the uncomfortable question, "What did you mean by that?" They force the aggressor to explain the insult, to drag it out into the light where it looks petty and weak. By refusing to smooth over the awkwardness, you force the other person to sit in the mess they created. You simply hold the mirror up. This is not aggression. It is a refusal to accept the garbage of others. It teaches the world how to treat you. It trains the people around you, like Pavlov's dogs, that disrespect yields an immediate, uncomfortable cost, while respect yields cooperation. There is a deeper spiritual dimension to this transformation. You have to be willing to be the villain in someone else's story. This is the hardest hurdle for the nice person, who is addicted to being the hero, the saint, the good one. But realize this, you cannot live an authentic life without disappointing people. You cannot pursue your own North Star without occasionally telling someone that you will not follow theirs. When you finally set a boundary, when you finally say no to the family member who drains you or the boss who exploits you, they will not applaud your personal growth. They will scream. They will call you selfish. They will say you have changed. They will cast you as the bad guy because you have stopped playing the role of the supporting character in their melodrama. You must accept this label. Wear it like armor. If being selfish means protecting your mental health, your finances, and your future, then be the most selfish person in the room. Better to be a free villain than a beloved slave. This integration of the shadow, the dark, self-interested, aggressive part of your psyche, is not a descent into evil. It is the only path to true wholeness. A person who is incapable of hurting others is not good. They are merely harmless. A person who is capable of great destruction, who understands the mechanics of power and manipulation, but who chooses to use that power to protect, to build, and to lead, that is a good person. That is the warrior in the garden. You need the capacity for ruthlessness to protect the things you love. You need the teeth of the wolf to protect the lambs. If you are only a lamb, you protect nothing. You're just waiting for the slaughter. So, as you move forward from this moment, let the nice version of you die a quiet death. Mourn him, for he meant well, but he was ill-equipped for the terrain of reality. Let the new version rise, not cruel, not malicious, but formidable. Walk with your head higher. Speak with a downward inflection. Hold your gaze. Protect your time with the ferocity of a dragon guarding gold. Do not apologize for your ambition. Do not apologize for your competence. Do not apologize for your existence. The world does not need more nice people who are too afraid to speak the truth. It needs strong people who are dangerous enough to be good and ruthless enough to win. The game has always been rigged, but now, finally, you know how to play.